Hoops Tribe. It's been a crazy day to be a WNBA fan. I'm getting notification after notification. I'm like, what the hell? What the helly? So the Valkyries, they did their big one today with their waivers. I know we got to cut down the roster, but they held out to the end for some of these. So we got the notification on Kaitlyn Chen, Chloe Bibby, Elissa Kunane, Mignan Toure, Laeticia Amihere. And the one that a lot of people are the most surprised about is Laeticia Amihere. She's a versatile big. She had range. She had a really big scoring night against the LA Sparks, 20 points. She stole the hearts of a lot of fans because she didn't see the playing time most felt like she deserved in Atlanta. So we were feeling like this is her, finally, she's getting her moment in time to be that player we know that she can be. And it feels like it was just ripped away. So why would they make this cut after she had such a remarkable preseason game? When I think about who the Valkyries are and what they've shown us they want to be this season, they want to be a high volume shooting team. They want to take a lot of threes. They want to move the ball really well. Amihere is that stretch big, but she's also very young in comparison to the players that she's competing against. She's competing against Kayla Thornton and Monique Billings. So maybe in this case, they went for experience. We also got to think of it from a coach standpoint. Yes, she scored 20 points, but did she score those 20 points within the offense they were trying to run? When I think back to that game, I saw a lot of her points be scored off of broken plays or having to scrap for it. Maybe they're just not that type of team. I personally think that every team needs a player that can get a little scrappy, that can score off of broken plays, that can be that player that can bang in the post. But it doesn't look like that's what they want their game plan to be. This team is going to be the epitome of small ball. They don't have a true center. Not that Amihere is really a true center, but I think out of all of the players that they have, she would have been the closest thing to it. I don't quite know where Natalie Nakase is going with this ideology. I think that small ball can work, but I think that it is important to have a little height just when you go against bigger teams. Like they're going to go against Chicago, they're going to go against the Aces. And what are Monique Billings and Kayla Thornton going to be able to do with those players? Because sometimes the size is really just going to matter. We also just got to the point where we were forgiving the Valkyries for waiving Shyanne Sellers because we saw Shyanne Sellers in her debut with Atlanta. And then we're like, oh, okay, well now this wave makes sense because Shyanne Sellers isn't showing us who she can be just yet. So now this makes sense. Maybe this is one of those cases where we're not seeing the full picture. You know, the coaches do have access to practice and we're just watching from the preseason games. We don't know what's going on in the locker room. We don't know what the actual game plan is. We just know what they get out there and execute. And sometimes what they're executing is not the actual game plan. And at the end of the day, the coaches are setting the playing field and the players have to live up to those expectations and not ours. But as a fan, we can dream, right? When I think about Toure, I have similar feelings. She had a big game against the Phoenix Mercury, 19 points. She's a guard at 6 feet. She's a bigger guard, and I think that's where the W is going. This would be her first season in the W, so she spent most of her time playing internationally. When I look at her game against Phoenix, she's a guard that scored 19 points, but she didn't have any assists. Like a literal goose egg in the assist column. Now that's a red flag for me, and I think for any coach that is emphasizing moving the ball. Like this team is going to have to move the ball, so that I can see how that did not fit their game plan. And I know some people are like, well, Tiffany Hayes doesn't move the ball that well. Tiffany Hayes is a little more experienced. They have a relationship. Maybe coach feel like she can reach her. You know, she has that overall W experience over Toure. So, yeah, I can see that happening. I can see why Toure was waived. Kaitlyn Chen isn't a surprise to me because it felt like her minutes just kept getting shorter. She went from an 8-minute showing to a 5-minute showing. And in each of those games, she had very little production. She's one of those players where I don't know how well her game is going to translate in the W at this point. I think that if as she gains experience, maybe she goes and plays internationally and then comes back next season, she can be that kind of sixth player off of the bench. I think that she is a strong role player, but I think that she just needs time to really develop and sharpen those tools so she can have some longevity if being in the W is in her future. Haley Jones was waived by the Atlanta Dream. I'm not surprised about that. I think it was a long time coming. Haley has been with the Dream for 2 seasons. In those 2 seasons, to the preseason game this year, I have not seen a lot of improvement. She is a bigger guard at 6'1". I think that there's a lot of potential in her build, but I just want to see more development. And I also don't know how I feel about her being in that guard position. She had to run a lot of the offense in the last couple of seasons with Tanisha Wright. Now they have a different game plan with Carl Smesko. She's not that strong of a 3-point shooter. It's not really a fit. So that makes sense to me. Maybe she can continue to develop her game and stretch into that 2-3 position more. I probably would put her more as a small forward, although she might be a little undersized when playing other players in the league, but I don't see her as a point guard. But Haley is definitely a strong role player. Hopefully she gets some development in the offseason and we see her get another crack at it in next season. Grace Berger was waived by the Lynx. Not surprised there after Hailey Van Lith put her on skates. Now, I'm not saying that Hailey Van Lith, that incident was enough to send her home, but I can say that was a red flag. If you're not able to guard the Rook, you're going to have a tough night trying to guard all of the other high caliber guards in the league. And the Lynx are, a defensive minded team. They're a defensive minded team. Cheryl Reeve is a defensive minded coach. So that could have been the concern there. And honestly, over the last couple of seasons, Berger spent most of her time in Indiana. She has not been really productive in Indiana. So this was her third crack at it. She does really well in the Turkish league. She's averaging 13 points, 6 rebounds, nearly 4 assists, nearly 2 steals. So this may be a case where the game is not translating in the W. The Mystics waive Zay Green, Khadijah Cave, Ashton Prechel, and Lauren Jensen. I'm not really surprised about Lauren Jensen. I was a little puzzled to see her get pulled in at such the last minute. Like, she missed most of the training camp. And I think they only pulled her in because, the Georgia Amore ACL injury. So she didn't get a chance to play in any of the preseason games. So I'm not surprised that she was waived. She was coming out of Creighton, so she's coming out of the Big East. I don't know if she's seen the type of caliber guards in that conference. So I don't know how well her game is going to translate in such a short turnaround time. So I'm not surprised about that wave. Zay Green hurts because I can just see her potential. I see that she can be a prolific scorer. I think that she can go get a bucket whenever she wants to. But for the type of offense that the Mystics are looking to run, and they're looking to pass the ball, and they're missing a guard that can really move the ball, I don't think that Zay Green gives them that. So I understand why she was waived. She's just not that type. If anything, she's more of a shooting guard. And they already have Brittany Sykes, and they already have Jay Milburn, who I think is more of a shooting guard than she is a point guard. So I think that Jensen was their hope at getting a guard that could distribute the ball. But when I was looking at her stats from Creighton, I was like, she's not even average. She's maybe 3 assists in the Big East. So if you averaging that little of assist in that conference, trying to translate that to the W, I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know if Georgia Amore would have been that guard that the Mystics need. I've already talked about this, but the Mystics gave away the guard that was really going to be able to distribute the ball in the way that they want to distribute ball, and that was Julie Van Loo. So without that, I don't really know if there's another guard in free agency pool that they could have gotten at this point to really be who they need them to be. Khadijah Cave, a forward, wasn't really productive in the 2 preseason showings, so I understand that wave. Ashton Prechel is the one that I'm really hurt about. I really had high hopes for Prechel. I thought that she was, kind of like a baby Stephanie Dolson, because she's a big that can stretch the floor. She has range. She didn't hit a lot in those preseason games, but we know from what she was able to do at Stanford that she can be, that she's a 3-point shooting big, but she just wasn't knocking them down. I thought that the upside to her over Stephanie is that she was a little more physical in the post, that she could bang a little bit. I feel like Stephanie likes to be around that perimeter. The Mystics are another team that I feel like are kind of similar to the Valkyrie. They want to move the ball around. They want to take a lot of 3-point shots. So maybe they're a team that's not really looking for post players that have the ability to bang. But in my opinion, I think every team needs that type of player. They have an upside to them because they have Shakira Austin, and Shakira Austin isn't taking 3-point shots. She is that mid-range true post, and she has a really nice build. She's going to be able to be that player when she's healthy, but she's really the only one, because Aaliyah Edwards, she's listed as a forward, but she's not a big. She's more of a small forward that, you know, can play down to the post because she has some skill there. Kiki Iriafen is going to have to play down in that 4 position now, definitely, even though, you know, we were having talks about her moving into more of a 3 position, but she's definitely going to have to be more of a 4 with Prechel not in the mix. Just that one really hurt me. I can't lie, that one hurt. The Liberty have officially suspended Betnijah Laney Hamilton's contract. She's been down with a meniscus injury. She had surgery, so she's recovering. But that still doesn't solve the Liberty's roster issue, because they have 15 people on the roster at this point. So they're still having to make some cuts. So we're going to get even more notifications from them, and it should be in the coming days because the season starts May 16th. Jaylen Brown was waived by the Indiana Fever, and I'm not surprised at that. I feel like she was in her head a lot during those preseason games. She's not playing to the potential that I know that she can play, to the glimpses that we got last season in Dallas. I know that she's a high caliber player who has the potential to be an elite scorer in the W. It's just not happening right now. I don't know if it's mental, if it's physical, if it's a combination of both, but I'm sad to see her go. This brings the Indiana Fever roster down to 11. They're also dealing with a couple of injuries. Sophie Cunningham is dealing with an ankle injury that she sustained during the Atlanta Dream matchup. She landed on a shoe and twisted her ankle. And then Demiris Dantas is suffering from a lower leg injury, and she's taking it day to day. They don't know when they're going to be back, and they don't know if they're going to be able to be available for that season opener. But the Indiana Fever going down to an 11 roster team is an example of why I don't think expanding the rosters is the solution to the problem that we're having. The problem for fans is that their favorite players aren't making a roster because it's so competitive, and they think it's so competitive with the 12 spots. These teams aren't even utilizing the 12 that they have, because even if a team takes it down to 11 on the roster, the coaches are going to play the same 7 to 8 players that they trust. The issue is not the space of the roster, it's the development of the roster. There is such a large gap from college to the pros, and that's when people are like, well, the WNBA needs a G League. I don't think the WNBA needs a G League. The WNBA needs to invest in Unrivaled. We've already been able to see how much development Unrivaled players are getting from that season in the winter to now. A lot of the Unrivaled players we see are already hitting a stride. And then we're also seeing development on their professional end. A lot of those Unrivaled players are now receiving brand deals that they didn't have at the end of their WNBA season. So we're seeing development on all fronts. Why not? Let's keep a good thing going. We don't need to create something new. And then with the names like Phil Handy, DJ Sackman, Lisa Leslie, those coaches and the analysts are equipped to really develop players in the offseason. So I think the WNBA needs to go ahead and invest in Unrivaled and have that be that development piece. That's what's missing, because in the women's game, in the girls' game, it's lacking so much because we're so behind. The women's game is so behind for so many different reasons that I don't even have time to get up on my soapbox about. But at the end of the day, all levels need more and skilled coaches, more and skilled trainers. And that's what's going to really help close that gap and keep the players that we really want to see on the roster. Now, of course, there are exceptions to this, because in the Las Vegas Aces situation, I don't think Deja Kelly being cut was a matter of her not being ready yet. I think that was a matter of business is business. They don't have the cap space. They don't have the roster space for this, and they needed other pieces. But in most of the cases, I think that it is a bit of development, and the way that you're going to develop is through reps, because if you're not keeping up in the WNBA, the way that you keep up in the WNBA is by playing in the WNBA. But if you're not keeping up, then you're not going to get to play in the WNBA. So it's hard, man. So I think, yeah, if WNBA swallow its pride and invest in Unrivaled, and they become this sister type partnership, then we're all going to go further. Everybody, the fans are going to have a better time. The franchises are going to have a better time, because we're cutting players because, it's also business, and we're cutting popular players. Like Kaitlyn Chen had become a fan favorite. Now the Valkyries are pissing people off. Amihere is another fan favorite. Everybody was rooting for her because they felt like Atlanta Dream did her wrong, and they were finally going to be able to watch her play. Now they don't have that opportunity to support someone, and you could have turned people off from the franchise entirely. So the WNBA has to think about those things. And there's conversations on, should these players even be going through media day if they don't know if they're going to make a roster? I see that two ways. I see that as it could be viewed as a waste of time, or it could be looked at as disingenuous, like they're just trying to use these players' faces for a profit. But it could also be looked at as training and development. I think what could be a solution for that is a combine. Now, I know that there was a combine this year, and it was the first WNBA combine was this year, but it was happening during the NCAA tournament. So that means all of the prospects weren't even able to participate in this combine. So how conducive was it really? No, I think that they have to be a lot more intentional about the combine, so every player has a chance to participate, international players as well. They take that time to really, showcase what they have, because right now we're using the preseason as a showcase, and I don't think that's really efficient. I think the preseason should be used to gel and learn each other, and especially if you're playing together for the first time, coming in off of free agency or coming in off of trade, you need time to play with your teammates in a setting that feels like a real game. And I get that, but since it's set up the way that it is, fans want to see the rookies play, because they know that this might be the only chance they get, because more than likely they're getting cut. So instead of the preseason games being this showcase, the preseason games could be more like what most of the coaches have been using them for, and that's for team gelling. If they were able to expand if they were able to build a combine and maybe push back when the season starts. If they push back the season 2 to 3 weeks, then that'll allow college players time to rest physically and mentally, and then they can prepare for the combine and get some workouts, get invited to some camp. They just have to be real intentional with the planning leading into the WNBA season. There needs to be a larger gap in between the NCAA tournament and the start of the WNBA season, so they can have time to, because it doesn't look like every team had an equal opportunity to scout, especially a new organization like the Valkyries. Like, how well were they really able to scout when they were really just hiring people because they're a brand new franchise? There just has to be a lot more thought put into what is happening in the WNBA offseason at this point. But what are your thoughts, Hoops Tribe? How you feeling about some of these waivers? How you feeling about the rosters? Let's talk hoops.